You can't take £1 million out of any contract without there being issues and problems. I think we need to get into that moment of mind. I think what we need to do as scrutiny committees perhaps is accept the fact that unless someone's got a magic wand or a magic purse or reprioritises something considerably, we ain't going to manufacture another £1 million going into that contract or any other contract in the foreseeable future. So I think that part of the mindset we should maybe try to adopt and on a non-party basis encourage this. We'll actually have to change the behaviour of people with small amounts of money for significant changes in behaviour, so people don't drop as much with it in the first place, or don't realise that the money isn't always going to be there to come up and sweep straight after you and encourage their children and people and so on. And we can do a lot to help ourselves by making sure the bins are empty enough for the litter to go in, which people say, well, the bin was full, so I threw it on the floor. So we need to start looking at methodologies, mindsets, plans of work that offer mitigation to some of the issues. That because I think you're going to come on and tell us about the budget situation into the future. It isn't going to get much better in the foreseeable future. So I think we have to do our bit to encourage members of the public to realise that the situation isn't always going to be as favourable in terms of funding and try and mitigate what happens. But at the end of the day, with the £1 million cut and the redundancy issues, it has had an effect, and we've seen that. And it's the beauty of the indicator is the indicator has picked it up. We've picked it up from our members of the public by complaints and so on and so forth. So I think to all of us together, we should take some, whether you like the format or not, the system seems to be working because it's telling us the true picture is we're struggling slightly at the moment with this part of the contract, particularly in those secondary areas and so on. So I think that we should sort of start using this as a tool for work for the future to try and put our resources where they're needed, and small amounts of money to yield behavioural change seems to be the way forward, I think, because we all have big amounts of money for big contracts.
I've got a couple of observations to make. First of all, the reporting period is April to June. So we've had July and August. My impression from New Brighton is that which obviously has had a very busy and good summer, and there was a lot of pressure on waste management in the May and June period, and parking as it has. That things have incredibly improved, and it's really appreciated the hard work that's gone into that. And you've explained it partly in terms of the negotiations that were going on about cutting staff numbers and things like that. But how was that manifested? So that you're saying that the figure dropped to 55%. What were they doing that resulted in just over 50% of the work being done?
I think in terms of how this manifests, it's actually, street cleansing is actually it's a pretty simple business in terms of we've got the resources out on the ground. Lots of them are barrow mount, certain use of equipment, etc. But very simply, the way it manifests itself is that when we have got those morale, those kind of issues, and possibly some of the management supervision hasn't been as close as it could be, we're just not getting the work output out of the getting the work out of the men on the ground. So if we've got happy, motivated workforce who are being supervised closely to make sure standards are kept to, the indicator goes up and we get the results. But then obviously when those two things are adrift, we see the conflict, and that's very simply what's happened here. But I think if we're taking some comfort, certainly on both of those issues, as I say, very directly that workforce morale issue and the uncertainty has now been addressed as at the 1st of July. And obviously the issue around the supervisors as well. So this is an area where certainly for the gateways and primary retail, we are actually confident that we can actually get that back on track fairly quickly.
I'd say take on then there's no sort of things as people
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just really quickie on. I don't know how often you actually do measure these percentages of these quality outputs. And in a sense, there's a degree, I suppose, they're not quite cut and dry. But are you, from the work that has taken place in July and August, preliminary results give you an indication that the situation has improved in Zone 1? And then, and slightly related to that, what is the difference if we move from an output base to a frequency base? What's the pros and cons of that? And do most authorities use a frequency base in residential areas? Is that the right way forward? How does that affect the level of service?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the first one, I'll be honest, in terms of the detailed early results and actual percentages, so I'm not aware of very recently in the past few weeks and months what those figures look like. I certainly can assure members that certainly at senior manager level, so Tara Dumas, who heads up our waste and environment services, at that level in terms of the people on the ground, they certainly will be keeping a close eye on standards on a weekly basis. And in fairness, certainly the different management will be doing that as well. Just in relation to the second point, really, what essentially the change in approach via the contract in residential areas. So the original BIFA contract, an output-based specification, essentially places all of the risk with the contractor. So actually what we say to BIFA is, we don't care what resources you have to employ, that's your business as the contractor, not ours. We just expect you to keep the place spotless to a grade A standard, so it's that outcome standard. What we're now moving to is that absolute risk on the, which sat with the contractor now, some of that risk is now coming back towards us as a client. So actually what BIFA is saying is now, the agreement that we have is that we monitor their performance, and it will be going back to the old approach of, well, does a barrowman go down a particular street, on a particular frequency or not, rather than us just expecting the place to be spotless all the time. And it is important to note that if they've kept to their frequencies, a few days later, if the area does start to deteriorate quickly, then actually BIFA have fulfilled their contractual obligation by just cleaning the street on that particular day. So in very broad terms, we are seeing, and again it's to achieve the £1 million saving in the deal and to reduce the resources, we are seeing a transfer of risk back towards the council. And to be honest, to take a £1 million out of the contract in that way, that really is, as far as I'm aware, the only way that really that can be done really to achieve those kind of savings.
Thank you. I've got just one more question.
It's actually not a question, it's just an aside or an observation. Pat mentioned New Brighton, and I have to say I've been down myself, and yes, I agree, it's clean, it's immaculate. But Steve also mentioned about educating people with picking up rubbish. And one of the things that I think would be quite a good idea in New Brighton is there's quite a cluster of restaurants and cafes and bars, and that area gets quite mucky or dirty and rubbish, and the bins are half full, the council have done their bit, but perhaps the education should come from the restaurants to clean up outside. And I happen to know from personal experience that if you work in one of my family, if you work in McDonald's in this card, part of your job is to pick up the rubbish outside. So I think that would help that cluster in New Brighton if you're talking about educating. I think that's a specific area though, not many areas are like that, but that would help.
Just to reassure Councillor Fraser that specific issue has been specifically raised through the constituency committee and with the contractors, and as part of their contract they actually have a responsibility, and it is going to be ensured that their responsibility is carried out.
So, Chair. That's on the other section.
Yeah, thanks Chairman. This indicates us about sort of giving some assurances that the staff savings that we were looking to achieve in this year's budget will have been achieved. And one of the areas of doing this was to actually make sure that the establishment records that we hold reconcile with the budget information. The difficulty that we have had, and we still have, is that we have two different systems. So the payroll system and the financial system don't automatically link. So there's a manual exercise that has to take place to actually do this reconciliation. One of the issues that's arisen this year has been that there's been a delay in sort of completing some of the restructures. A planned delay, I should say, and the last of the restructures has just been signed off today. So it's not been possible to do this piece of work, or to actually complete this piece of work up until now. We believe that we will complete it by the 31st of October of this year. The assurance that members have is that despite not actually completing this piece of work, we continue to monitor the budget to ensure that the savings that we put in the budget have been achieved. And the next report on the agenda, Chairman, updates members as to where we are with that. So we haven't completed this. We hope to complete it by the 31st of October, but it shouldn't ring alarm bells because the budget position, as we go on to the next report, shows that we are actually achieving those savings. I'm happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you.
Let's do the radio shift.
Yeah, no good at all. I got this.
Okay, just go back. A couple more questions on I think also say on that. Okay.
It's about line 6, travel solutions. I don't know what the figures refer to. There's no comment about what they refer to. The year-to-date target for 2013-14 is put in as 265. It's a 265. The year-to-date performance is 740, actually. And the forecast outturn is 1,000. There's no indication why the performance appears to be 3 times better than or twice as good as the target, and why the outturn is good. Could we explain it to you?
So, I think as we've identified an inherent problem with the report, I think we're very much focused on exceptions and we haven't looked at over-performance. So this is definitely an over-performance. I think what we need to rectify going forward is that, as well as identifying under-performance, we do the same for over-performance. I don't have the answer to this particular topic at the moment, but I will ensure that the committee gets that response following this meeting.
Okay, it would just be helpful to know who is making the interventions on behalf of Wirral with us.
Another, which I think is probably a misleading figure, is in areas where the down is improving, and you pick one alcohol-related hospital admissions, the figure is improving, but it's no comparison with other authorities, and you understand the one of the 10 worst authorities for alcohol-related hospital admissions. So I think it's great to have the exceptions on here to look at them in detail, but some of the ones that aren't flagging up as being an area of concern still are a concern, and we should have some information as to what's being done on those. Not necessarily today, but I'm just all the criticism can go with this around that already.
Any more questions before we
Can I just be very more?
Thank you. Just two comments, if I could respond to Glasgow as well as goes from
We have also provided you with, I know it's an awful lot of information, but a technical advice specification for every single indicator. The indication that you were querying about just point to what the number actually means. So without going into detail to it, we can provide a little bit of information to that. So that was just to particularly answer that one. And I think, in terms of first of all, I think this is an illustration perhaps where we need to bring together lots of different sources of information to determine what we need to focus on. Because you're quite right, alcohol is a serious problem for our borough. We're doing okay on alcohol issues, but how does that play out into later conditions? How does that relate to other places, as we said? How does it relate to what's going on when we do to stand time in alcohol abuse? And I think that is why members of the Families and Wellbeing Committee recommend it's an area that they are going to focus on.
Thank you. What's the recommendations? Page 12. And also like to note comments and numbers. Agree? Okay. Jim?
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. So, two reports, the revenue monitoring and the capital monitoring reports. Both these reports are at 1 to 2, so that's up to the end of May. So clearly the information is out of date. But at the last meeting, these reports, the last meeting was the beginning of July, so these reports were ready then. And the process is that they go to Cabinet and then come here. However, I'll sort of take you through the reports, Chairman. In terms of the revenue monitor on page 89, the headline is that there's at 1 to 2, there's a small underspend of 41,000. That's pleasing and not really that surprising, because we sorted out some of the issues that we had last year in terms of what we called the bad budgets. So the budgets were all, at the start of the year, were all robust and were set to actually deliver the agreed service level. Clearly we continue to monitor that. Rather than go through all the detail, Chairman, I think it may be useful to just refer to two of the appendices. First one is the annex is Annex 5 on page 104, which is the savings tracker. Part of this year's budget, this refers in a way to the last item I was talking on, the salary savings. At 1-2 on Annex 5, page at number 1 in the summary, you'll see that we've got approved budget reductions of 48 million, and at 1-2 we had delivered sort of 19 million of that, with 28 million still to be delivered. That's a fairly good performance at 1-2. The position at 1-3 has improved on that, and that tracker will be used every month to actually give members the reassurance that we are achieving those savings that were set, those ambitious saving targets that were set. The other annex I'd like to draw your attention to is Annex 12, which is a new departure this year for us as well. So that's on page 122. Annex 12 sets out the budget issues that we've identified at 1-2, and you'll see that the bottom line for the current year 13-14, we had an additional requirement at that stage of $1.5 million. The narrative in the report says that strategic directors were asked to find those savings and report back by 1-3 as to how they would address that potential overspend. Pleased to say that 1-3, that figure now reads 0 at 1-3, so action has been taken. This is part of the new accountability and transparency sort of regime that we have, that clearly under and overspending will occur during the year, but it's important as a sort of a management group that we do something about it. So the overspends, the potential overspends at 1-2 have been addressed, and at 1-3 you can assure that they quitted at that. that figure zero, we're found savings to meet the potential overspend. A lot of detail in the report, Chairman. I appreciate that it's only up to the end of May, but I'll take any questions if members may have on the revenue.
Anyone have questions?
Thank you, Chairman. I just noticed two questions really. On pages 106 and 107 and 108, there are 8 references to slippage due to late departure of employees. Is this the same employee or the number of employees, and what is the impact of this?
Yes. It's a number of employees. The process for sort of restructuring the council and taking the savings has taken longer than was anticipated. But having said that, we had put within the budget savings, we had put an allowance for slippage. So we put in an allowance of £2 million for slippage because we assumed, we didn't know where it would happen, but we assumed it would happen. And we are monitoring against that, and the £2 million at the moment is adequate to actually deal with that.
So really you answered the second question, that you are currently feel for the implications of that slippage.
Yes, the size of the reduction programme going through would always mean that there would be slippage. Always take, in my experience, always take longer to actually complete these restructures. So we built in allowance for that.
Is that through you again, Chair? Is that slippage at an end now? Has that problem been overcome? Or have you still got further money to lay against that activity?
That's now sorted. We know what the extent of the slippage is, and it's less than £2 million. I think it's 1.6 million. We're provided for £2 million.
Okay. The second of 3 questions was on 116. You've mentioned business rates, I think, on page 116, and it shows that you haven't been able to get paid the non-national and domestic rate is less than it was in previous years, if I read that correctly, 19.5%. Is there any reason for that particular? Sorry, the percentage collected is under business rates on page 116, bottom section. It says actual 2013, 2014, 19.5%. Actual for last year was 21%, so it's slipped a bit. Is there anything we need to worry about with that?
I don't think at this stage that we do, because that's something that we do monitor more closely this year, because one of the changes in local government funding was that in previous years the risk on business rates was held by the government because we were in effect collecting authority for the government. Now we bear some of that risk, so we do monitor that, and that's the reason Annex 9 is there. At this stage we don't believe it's a concern, but we will continue to monitor that monthly and report back.
Thank you. The third and final question, if I may, Stuart. We all know that, unfortunately, Mary Bagley has left the authority, or is certainly leaving the authority very shortly. On page 131, in the subsequent financial information provided following that page, Mary is referred to 7 or 8 times under individual aspects of like Lannigan Cemetery, Birkenhead Park restoration fees, Highgate Golf Course, on a number of occasions. On that, I'm sorry, that was on page 134, but on page 133 she's also referred to. I'm just trying to make the point that the programme manager for that is down as being Mary Bagley. I wondered who was going to end up with the responsibility in her absence of achieving these budgets. How are you doing?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Mary left on Friday, and we'll certainly cover that within the service and things like that. I would pick that up as Mary's line manager. So
it's just really as a matter of information from our point of view, as knowing who is the individual. The individuals have been specified here, Mark. Yeah. Through you again, Stuart. It's just a question of knowing who that person is now going to be. It would be helpful. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Right, I've just got one question.